You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way. Welcome to the party. I'm SavageMick.
I'm Dave.
And I'm Scarr.
And you've caught us crunching the numbers this week, folks. We're going to keep it relatively concise. We want to talk about a recent survey that Warlord Scarr put out amongst the conscripts to gain some insight into what kind of adventures people are playing, adventure types, preferences for players, and preferences for GMs. But I'm not a numbers guy, as I'm sure anyone who's listened to this more than twice will tell you. So I'm going to hand over to the Warlord. Scarr, what we got here?
So I put this out more or less on a whim, just idly curious, but I put it out on a number of different Discords that I had. I put it out on our Discord. Please join our Discord. A variety of other Discords I have for various RPG communities. So I like to think I've got a relatively broad scope of people to do it. So 28 entries, so N equals 28 in the interest of accuracy. And I think the results we got were quite interesting. But maybe before we go to that, could we just go and maybe have the party members answer the questions? Just to...
okay.
Just,
I'm pretty sure I think I responded to this already. So we won't add to the end.
Yeah. But just to set the tone of the people, so that people know that, people know our biases, essentially.
I have a horrible feeling I'll answer differently this time, but sure, take us through it.
Okay, so, Savage, what kind of adventure structures do you prefer as a player? Do you like to have little, episodic, not necessarily all that connected adventures here and there? Do you like to have a definite tie between the adventures that leads to an overall climax? Or like little bits here and there that aren't really connected at the start, but the players through their actions sort of unite them together into a plot all their own. It was not necessarily directed. Or just no real... You can take any...
One, strongly disagree. Next question. Okay, this is good. Okay. I'm, as a player, I do tend to like... I like plot threads which aren't connected at first. So those... You maybe play through a series of adventures, knock over a goblin chieftain, explore a mysterious tower, that kind of stuff, raid a CEO's mansion, that kind of thing. But as you kind of get deeper and deeper into the campaign, you're playing with the same players and the same GM, you realize that, oh, wait a second, there's something going on here, there's a deeper mystery. So yeah, as a player, I kind of dig those because it gives you the chance to kind of chop and change locale or activity every few sessions, but still be building towards something else, even if you're not entirely sure what that is to begin with. So that's I'll go with that, which I think it was the majority. I won't spoil. No. I'll just say my piece. I'll take that option.
Dave, same question to you.
My tastes vary, but I'm not so keen on the idea of completely unconnected adventures. I like continuity. I like building on what's gone before as a general thing. Also, I'm also not thrilled by the idea of a narrative being set out ahead of time and the PCs just paying their parts. So that what that ends up in is similar enough to what Mick is talking about, that plot threads that aren't connected at first. But like that, and either ones that the players are tying together because we've taken over this keep and we can do something with it, and that's going to annoy the guy, the evil wizard we already have beef with, or choosing to follow particular leads or threads that interest them that the GMs have providing. The plot threads that the players connect would be my preference, I suppose, out of all those.
Okay. So the second question
back
is...
at you, Scarr. Come on.
We
showed you ours.
Come on. The hearts of the table.
Grower. I'm actually going to say that I have the fourth option, which is the no strong preference as a player. But that's not to say that at a given time I don't particularly like one way direction. It's that I think I appreciate a variety. Like, I could see benefits to sometimes just having disconnected, not particularly worrisome things, and then sometimes we want this grand narrative that starts at A, goes to Z, and we hit all the points in between. And a lot of the time you like the, there's all these little bits, let's play them around and start putting them together like Legos. Like, I think I would say, as a player, I kind of like the variety. That would be, maybe I put that in as an option specifically, because I don't think that's a cop-out to say that your tastes will change. And this is a point I'll come back to later. I suspect that people's tastes may change during the course of a game.
That's actually
not
fair.
Necessarily. Yeah, but
what is it that drives a man towards a neutral? Okay, no strong preference. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, what did our survey say? Second question. Sorry, yeah. I'm jumping ahead.
Second question is sort of the same, but from a GMing perspective. Do you prefer, when you are running a game, do you prefer to have little episodic chunks that you can swap and shift and move around as you will, or place as like generic, we'd like to go A or B this week. Okay, I'll just pull out something from my A folder, something from my B folder, put them out as options. Or would you prefer the big damn campaign where you have an arc, you have all these adventures, these dungeons you want to try, these cool NPCs, and it's all going to the climactic world-shattering finale? Or do you want a sandbox, a reactive sandbox, something which has its own stuff going on? Like, all the factions are doing this, this, and this, but as the players interfere, plots will go awry, rivalries will be made, friendships may blossom, perhaps even romance, but it cannot be predicted at the start. It all develops from a fertile soil of prep and random tables. Or, again, no strong preference.
Who, me?
No, this is as a GM. As a GM, what do you say?
Right. I think I might have answered a big damn campaign with an overall arc, either from you or a book, when I took the survey first, but the reality of what I have actually done when I have GM'd in the last couple of years is season arc, running probably more than 4 to 10 sessions, but with a definite, we are going to finish the story and it ends here, and if we pick up again in a couple of months, we'll be moving on with the same characters, but perhaps into a different milieu. That's been the way I'd tend to be, because my attention span is quite short, and I know this. For me, mixture of the two, specifically because in a big damn campaign from a book, I've got a lot of work done for me. I'm a lazy GM. And the season arc, I have a set end goal in mind that I can get to, and then, put the tools down and take a break for a while, go back to playing or something like that. So I'm kind of between those two stools. My preference is the season arc, so run a discrete number of sessions. And it'd tend towards more like time. I'll do 6 months with the objective to play out a particular thing, which allows me then to slot in. I could do a book for 6 months and then come back, a couple of months later and go, here's a homebrew thing that I'm working on, so let's do that. And with a lot of talking with the players in between. Okay, long answer. There you go.
No, that's fair. And it is probably an option I should have put in because it was one of the. I think our friend Charlie from Who Dares Rolls was the one who suggested that. I popped it in. Unfortunately, I didn't think to put it into the initial question, but it is a very interesting option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dave, what about yourself?
Okay. I believe I put down as an option a sandbox with ongoing plots that react to the PC's actions. I do incorporate elements of a big damn campaign, if only because my preference for GMing and playing as well, if I'm honest, is very long campaigns. I do have quite an attention span for these things. Which does mean that I can get quite wrapped up in the details, which has its own issues. But I do run pre-published material, but I'll tend to run it in a way where the players aren't locked into a single course of action. And quite often I find that I'm using them more as setting material and inspiration rather than running them straight.
Yeah.
So, I also have a tendency to pull material intended for one game to another game, if related, such as Dark Heresy investigations given to Deathwatch characters, but for the Space Marines getting different incentives and reasons to even be there, and of course things I'm not going to lock them into a single course of action because I don't have the entire thing planned out. That's an emergent property of the interaction between GM and player, as far as I'm concerned. So sandbox with other things thrown into the mix to make the sandbox.
Okay, so I'm going to stop being a filthy neutral and throw my hat in. I don't think I can run not in a sandbox. If you excuse the double negative. Due to various early gaming experiences that I don't really want to go into right now, I physically feel repulsed at the idea of running with even anything more than the most basic of railroading. I'll have the world reacting sensibly, sure, but plot railroading is just something I don't think I'm really capable of. So that means that all my campaigns, even if I am trying to run out of a book, I will be thinking as I read through the book, this is great. Oh no, this is a railroad. I'll have to think of some alternatives that could happen here. And even though I do have this really big aspirational aspect to my collecting, it's just saying I've got this big campaign module, I want to run through it, but I have to put in a whole bunch of stuff for player agency. I just very strongly feel like I have to run in a sandbox manner. Even when maybe the players would prefer I didn't. I have gotten complaints of this from some of my players saying, why are you giving us so many options? Just give us a bad guy to smash. If
the Alexandrian hadn't gotten to Dragon Heist first, you'd have done it yourself.
Possibly.
You pull up. You just look at published stuff and go, nah, this closes off too many options. Let's lever those open again.
Yeah,
okay.
And I do. That's part of why I love collecting adventure modules, is because it engages the part of my brain that likes fixing things. It's just I can go into this and I can monkey around this, and this, and I do that, and there'll be sandbox again. So that is I think my approach to all of this. But shall we talk about the public's?
The Great and Washed.
Well, hey, I had a shower this morning. So just before we go any further, you can probably glance at the show notes now, or what passes for them, folks, and find a link to this survey. Scarr, do you want to leave it open and up?
I think I'll probably take a screenshot. Is better than giving people access to my Google Sheets or whatever.
Well, I mean, to submit to the survey.
Oh,
Continue
if you
to collate data. Yeah, this could be a living survey. That's the thing,
okay.
right? I've just invented the living survey. You're here for it, folks. You heard it here first.
Invented on air.
On-air invention of something that probably exists already. The Living Survey. So if you'd like to, if you haven't gotten to the survey yet, please contribute further so we can come back and do another episode. Maybe do some more surveys. But right, so moving on. Yeah. What
the results.
Think, yeah.
The public's results. Okay.
N.
Should I put this in?
N think?
Well, N equals 28 have surprisingly solid and readable results for one thing. So, for the first question, what kind of adventures do you prefer as a player? I'm going to just ignore the minor 1s and 2s votes for now and say that in order, there was 25% for no strong preference. Okay. And so that's like, 7 out of the 28, but yeah. And 25% for the connected series of adventures with a arc. So we have don't care and just put me through a plot as pretty strong minorities, but the plot threads which aren't connected at first, which the players tie together, so sort of the sandboxy approach, got a 42.9% preference advertised for it.
The single largest chunk, and heading towards half, if not quite there.
It is very significant that according to the perspective of a sizable majority, although not a plurality, that the sort of sandbox approach is the player-facing sandbox is where it's just like, maybe it is behind the curtain, it is in the GM's eyes still a big damn campaign, but to the players it looks like, none of this was connected until we connected it. And that's the part. It's like, so while it's certainly a good chunk of the player base don't care or happy to go through a story that is well crafted, the majority is we build the story through our actions, or appear to at least. So that's a pretty strong thing.
The big cohort of undecideds is interesting here because it means that you could lump them in with either side. You've got the 42, 49%.
And swing a majority.
Swing a majority that way. Or they go in with the other 25% who opted for connected series of adventures, each leading to the next with a climactic finale. If they're easy either way, then they get to decide what's actually the majority.
Yeah, and that's nothing wrong with that. As I say, tastes will change. You will go into one campaign saying, I really want to just have this epic story with my character's background integrated from the start. We go through the entire thing, end up, fighting God in the back of a dying star or whatever. And then the next campaign is just like, let's just pootle around doing random stuff every session, and none of it really matters the next session. Tastes will change. And again, as I said, I think you'll often get tastes changing during a campaign, because after you spend 6 months on your epic, intense, emotional thing, having a couple of random episodes of shopping nonsense, accidentally getting arrested because you stabbed a barman, that kind of thing, people could be up for that after a while.
Yeah, as long as you can sort of weave it into the ongoing narrative. Yeah, continuity is kind of a standout factor here, isn't it? How much continuity do players prefer or want? Yeah. Which suggests either continuity of character or continuity of campaign world, or both. And I pull them apart like that because I'm currently using a character that I've kind of fleshed out in my own head, but I'm using the same character with different stats in different games. I'm an experiment, if you will. But in my own head, I can kind of Michael Moorcock the whole thing together. But there's no continuity between the games that character's appearing in, and both games have their own continuity in which that character exists. So, yeah, I think there's players, I think, show a strong preference for connectivity and continuity as far as their character's experience goes. Would it be fair to say that?
I would think it would be fair to say that. It depends on the game. I know that this sort of question of what's the most important continuity is one of those things that the OSR people like to brag on about, that like a classic or modern or traditional, the name has changed every year. Like a standard game would be very much more about character continuity, whereas an OSR game would be about world continuity. And yeah, those characters are dead, but the army of demons they released are now part of the setting.
Well, players are affecting the world either way.
Yeah, but that's what the player's preference is. Mostly sandbox, but significant majorities of swing either way or big, storyline campaign. Then we get to the GM, the version of this question, and it is even more stark, where we have a whole bunch of one-off answers. 32% of GMs, so nearly a third, say, I want a big damn campaign. I want to take my book that I paid significant thing from Wizard Coast, or I designed from scratch, or got on Kickstarter or whatever, and I want to run through that end to end. And we have this big plot arc. Maybe the characters are involved in it. Maybe there's a book. Maybe there's a whole bunch of design. Whatever. That's the objective for me, is the big damn campaign, the full arc end to end. And then eating up the rest of the pie, a total of 50% of the GM participants said, I want a sandbox game. Ongoing plots, reacts to the players, and that's my jam. It has to be all player driven, but I reacting, my NPCs are doing this, my factions doing that, at the core is this freedom, and they can go anywhere within this premise, such as you. And I would just like to say something I was not expecting from both of these, is that the idea of episodic play barely even registers as a thing on either of these questions.
Lay that one out for me. Episodic play being?
That's the disconnected, unconnected adventures. Players,
I think we've got the heart of the matter. This is a crypto, let's beat up on the OSR episode.
No.
Oh, now you got numbers. It's objectively true. They're the worst people ever. They don't know what they're doing. Okay. Well, I've always suspected they were a small subset anyways. I mean, they're...
Oh, mate.
What?
It is interesting that, like, out of 28 responses, we got one person saying that they liked discrete adventures in each one. And I don't even think it was the same person who said they liked discrete on each, although I'd have to go through 28 individual responses.
That's the interesting thing about this, that there's a disconnect between what people prefer as players and what people prefer as GMs, to some extent.
Well, it seems more like GMs have gotten there's not no people who have no GMs that have no strong preference, but it's a much smaller. It's like 2 votes out of 28, so less than 10%.
That makes sense. Yeah, you're going to gravitate towards a style. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
So my theory is going that you can afford to be more passive as a player. Like a player really has to just show up. A GM is more inclined to actually have something on the table. Just, yes, you could run something just on the fly, fair enough, and not be too fussed about what it is. But most GMs have preferences because they've probably, as you said earlier, Scarr, that they probably bought something, they want to run it, they want to get some use of it, or they're just inspired by something. I'm not surprised that there's much less of a no strong preference and neutrality in the GM section like that. So that's my theory, such as it is.
Yeah, I mean, GMs, the eternal truth is they're probably the hardest working player at the table. Buy your GM a pint or something. God damn it.
Buy your GM a pint.
Exactly.
But I do think it's interesting because you hear about. I didn't specifically come out to call out OSR people
yeah,
about
but
this.
look at this happy accident. You're only delighted to play in the puddles now that it's rained.
God. But
I like that phrase.
It's good, isn't it? I don't know. A lot of puddles this week.
It is the idea of, I take my, the idea that I take a bunch of modules and just modularly put them into a game world, and which, we'll just go to one week, we'll go to one next week. Okay, it's maybe not a pure OSR idea, but it is sort of the go-to, you just need to set up a campaign site. Just plop down a couple of adventure modules here, and here. I don't know, I feel like I'm going to get arguments from...
Are you not mischaracterizing the OSR kind of mode a little bit? Because my understanding is that the campaign world will be fairly fully fleshed out. You're not doing a spiral. And instead, death comes often. So there's more opportunities for players to kind of go, we TPK'd. Let's, move the timeline on a month and reconvene with a new set of characters starting 50 miles away.
I'm going to throw something out real quick. I think there is, as far as I can see, not just one type of OSR play. Feel free to correct me on this, but I have seen OSR style games where they're emphasizing episodic play. Barbarians of Lemuria definitely does. While not strictly, it's not a retro clone or anything, but it has that OSR feel from what I gather. And so it's not an unknown style of play in the OSR.
Yeah. It's you're going to get, well, there's part of the OSR is it has so many styles to play with it. But if your GM is the kind who doesn't want to do the hex crawly part, then, and does want to do you start at the entrance to the dungeon every week sort of style, because that's the juice for them. Mm. You see, I feel like I've seen the suggestion of, well, here's a bunch of modules, here's our level ranges, just put them as you want. What do you want to try this week? Do you want to try this award-winning venture? Do you want to try this classic? This is now available on Drive-Thru RPG. Pick and choose if you don't care about overland travel. And the purists are going to say, you should definitely have your hex crawl elements. But if you're in a non-West Marches open table, you're just running the dungeon crawl, you're not worried about the getting to and from, and then that kind of thing would appeal. But you see here, I think that I double-checked, went through the individual responses. There was one person who voted, I like discrete episodic play, both times.
Right.
Everyone else had a much different opinion.
Okay, conclusion time. What can we draw from this? I know the N is quite small, but these are people who have a broad range of experiences and have given us their honest opinions. So what do we think about what we've been told?
Well, there's always the question of, did we ask the right questions? People are going to argue the questions, and as we said, we got the concept of the season arc. The idea of the structure is that of the big damn campaign, but it's been compressed into episodes. And so maybe if I put that as an option on the thing, where people would have said, oh no, that sounds way better than just, we're in a different dungeon every episode.
Yeah. So, look, there might be a call to run this again, but we've got to work with the data we have. There's a large overlap for people who sort of want to see ongoing stuff, but not necessarily it's all big damn campaign all the time.
Definitely this shows that continuity is very important, but so is freedom, and there's this kind of counterbalance between those. There's strong branches for both the everything's open sandboxy, and also everything's plotted. Like the more open style of play is the more popular among the RPG enthusiast discords that I post all this on. But there is still a strong core of, let's say, more narrative people who want the structure of a cool plot to work through. Cool plot or progression or whatever, however you want to frame that.
Cake and eat it. There's a hidden cost here, of course, and hidden pressures. Always is. And it comes to mind that if you want to run the kind of what, if you're going to have to run what people are asking for, you're going to find yourself having to put out a broader stable in terms of, say, models or terrain or stat blocks prepared or a general familiarity with more and more factions and creature types, things like that. If your campaign is, our crusade against the orcs, then you can be fairly sure that from week to week the GM has to prep kind of orky stuff and wildernesses and battlegrounds and campsites and caverns and things like that. Whereas if you're jumping from, if you're jumping, even if it's discrete play, you're jumping from the Hall of the Manticore King to the Commando Kobold Assault, things like that, you're going to have a lot more stuff ready on short order. So I think that's worth keeping in mind, and I suspect it's why it pushes the GM answers towards certain directions. Big Dam campaign is usually going to be fairly discreet in terms of what you're fighting. Against the giants, it's going to be ogres and hill giants, and then eventually giants and their attendants. But you won't have to have a lot of illithids or mind flayers, they're the same thing, prepared on the side just in case. Just a thought. Anyway, Dave, what would you draw from this?
Well, I draw from this player agency seems to shine through. People want options and they want to have consequences. Unconnected episodes just don't seem to be as popular, and those imply a lack of continuity. And I would argue more the way they tend to be presented offers less player choice, because it's more often than not it's a case of the GM deploying what they're going to run next. I could have picked this up wrong, of course. There seems to be a lot of love for sandboxes, and not a small amount of big damn campaign. And the two aren't. I would argue the two are not completely opposed. You can have elements of one within the other.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly the major thing I might have left out, is the idea that you could start off with your big campaign, but then they discover the big bad guy 5 episodes in, and the GM has to come up with a new plot, or you have your big open sandbox. People go around doing things, but as they connect the dots together, a final plot will sort of grow naturally out of their endeavors, and then the campaign will pivot to dealing with that final threat as their conclusion.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's final thoughts, feelings, emotions.
Slightly nauseous. Bit of a hangover. Okay, folks, let us know what we've missed here. Take a look at the numbers. We'll post them. We'll post them to the Discord. Join our Discord.
Yeah, well,
check our Discord. And probably elsewhere. Put it on Twitter. Check a look, as they say at this time of year, and tell us what conclusions you might draw from N and his responses.
And if you are part of the silent majority of people who love episodic games, you could come and burn our Discord down by joining our Discord.
Yeah, should answer the damn survey. Right, let's drop it there, will we?
All right.
Lies, statistics, etc. Something. Famously quoted Mother Teresa. So, right. I think it's fair to say that on the back of all this
party is over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.